So, for people who may not know you or may not have heard of you before, could you sort of like detail your history within the sport of swimming and just your own personal history outside of the sport if you want as well?
Yeah, cool. My name's Nyls Korstanje. I'm from the Netherlands, and when I was 6 years old, I moved to the U.S. with my family. We moved to Boston because of my dad's work. I actually started swimming there because my parents had to do something with me over the summer because we were hyperactive and we needed to go somewhere, so we went to the pool. And since then, that sticked. And I moved back to the Netherlands at the age of 9. And then I kept swimming. But while I was in the US, I kind of got the vibe of college swimming in the US. Like the big sports culture here. And I think until the end of high school, I was just in the Dutch system, and then I started considering going back to the US because it is a very optimal system to keep studying and to keep swimming. Um, and yeah, Bobby Genturo, who was my former sprint coach at NC State, he reached out to me in 2016, I believe, and there was a bunch of other schools that reached out, but I ended up taking a trip to NC State and liking it a lot. And then, yeah, I went to NC State. I still competed for the Dutch national team, and I do over the summer. I go back to the Netherlands and train there mostly and compete for the Dutch. And yeah, I've had a couple of medals, especially on relays. Uh, I would say I'm still relatively young and at the beginning of my person or like my individual swimming career. I hope at least that there's more to come. But I have been lucky to be on some good relay teams and to get some medals. And in 2018, me and the relay team actually broke the world record in the 4x50 freestyle mixed. So that was pretty significant in my life. And yeah, this is my last year of college swimming, most likely. And next year I will. I'm still figuring out what I'm gonna do towards the Olympics. But yeah, what happens after that? I don't know yet. I'll have to see. Kind of go with the flow. Yep.
I'm curious. Are you one of the people who gets the fifth year like option if you take it?
I have not yet. So I took an Olympic redshirt year during Corona.
Oh, okay.
Um, so most of the team stayed back the first semester, and a bunch of them returned back the second semester when it was like possible to return back. In that was the 2020-2021 season. I decided to stay home to focus on the Olympics, and I mean that went well. I did miss the U.S. and I mean I'm glad I returned. But I'm not 100% sure if I can take a fifth year. I'm actually looking into that right now. So yeah, stay tuned, I guess, for what happens next. Yeah,
I managed to get 4 years out of my 2 years at my community college because
nice.
of COVID.
Yeah, well, there we go. It's a lot of people are using it very smartly. So yeah, who knows?
So you spoke about like a number of colleges reached out to you, and that NC
Mhm.
State was the college you ended up going to. I'm curious. I'm going to combine two questions here. What were some of the colleges that reached out, and what was the main driving force behind the decision to go to NC State?
Yeah, so there was a lot of colleges that reached out. Well, I mean, my coach from the Netherlands reached out to Texas, so I had a little bit of talk with Texas, weren't that interested. I sent something to Cal, weren't interested. Um, I sent something to Florida, they weren't interested. But NC State was extremely interested, and that really, like, I don't know, that made me feel wanted in a way, and I really like that. I also talked to ASU a lot. I talked to Harvard for a bit. Um, yeah, I would say those three schools, but NC State was always like, I don't know, they were just the most invested in me. And the fact that they were also the first ones to reach out made it special. And when I took my trip here, I was just like, this is where I belong. It's more so what really pulled me in is the team culture that they have here. Um, it's just a bunch of weird dudes in college. I really liked how outside of the pool, most of them didn't talk about swimming, and most of them had like hobbies. And I don't know, that really appealed to me, especially in the Netherlands. They when you're a swimmer, you are a swimmer, and that's what you are, and that's kind of your whole personality. And I felt like here, people were more than just swimmers, and yeah, I just really like that vibe, and I still really do. And I think the culture we have in practice is just like, I mean, it's out of this world. I think we probably have one of the best training groups in the world, especially when it comes to butterfly. Um, and yeah, that works really well for me. Yeah.
And I know NC State's been putting together some pretty good relays over the past like 4 or 5 years.
Hmm.
So you talked about like swimming in the Netherlands over the summer and then being in the college system during the school year. So I'm
Yeah.
curious if you've competed in like or you've practiced in both outside of the U.S. and in the U.S. college system.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you can compare the two experiences and if there's anything you would change or take from one and put in the other.
Okay. Yeah, that's very interesting. I actually have an interesting philosophy on that. I like to compare it to um, it's almost like when you're in high school and you're practicing for the SAT, right? So what you do first is you have to have math and you have to have English and you got to know the basics of those skills to do well in the SAT test at the end of the high school, right? You can also do well in the SAT if you practice really hard at doing the SAT, kind of mastering the skill of doing the test, right? What I believe is that at NC State, you learn the basics of doing math and doing really well at math, and then doing English and just being really good at English. And then in the Netherlands, I feel like I perfect the skill of doing the test, right? And I think it really complements each other because, in the end, you won't do well on the SAT test if you only practice doing the test and you don't know how to really do math or you don't really know how to do English, right? But you also won't do really well on the SAT if you only practice doing math and English and like you don't know what the SAT is. You don't know that there's pressure of time, there's pressure of this. So what I think in the US, I really work on the fundamental of getting better at swimming. And we just work really hard and we just put a lot of effort into um, just getting better as swimmers. And then in the Netherlands, I believe that there's a lot of focus on how to race better and how to get your skills better and how to become better racers mostly. Um, so yeah, right now I feel like I'm not at, or like at least after I graduated from high school, I didn't have the level of a top class swimmer yet. I knew there was just more in the tank. I was maybe at I don't know, 85% of my capacity. And here I'm building up to maybe 100% or maybe to 98% of my capacity. And then in the Netherlands, I could build up to that, like that slight extra. Um, and it's good. In the Netherlands, there's a lot of focus on personal, on like the individual, and on very uh, individualized workouts, and which can also be lonely. And in the US, there's just a training group of a lot of people. I mean, it's also very individualized for sure, but there's at least 4 people or 5 people doing the same practice, and that's just like I feel like that also pushes you over the edge. Yeah.
I think that's a really good way of thinking about it. Actually, I going into that question, I didn't expect that to be the type of answer that you would say, but that's a really, really like that got me thinking about it. Like that's a really good way of saying it.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
that's how I like to explain it to
yeah,
people because they always question like why I switch systems. And I think, well, I mean, it's impossible to switch systems if you don't know what the systems are. But because I'm so familiar with both systems, I think it works really well like together. Yeah.
So this is sort of an extension of that question is so you practice in short course yards and probably long course meters throughout the year at NC State,
Uh-huh.
and then going internationally, there's no focus on short course yards internationally. It's
No.
short course meters and long course meters.
Yes.
So I'm curious if you had to first of all if you had to pick one that was the only one you could compete in, which one would it be? And
Okay.
how do you think the three different since you've gotten so much practice in the three different formats, how do you think they complement each other or make it more difficult to compete in the other ones? If that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good question. I do think I do struggle a lot when I have to switch from one to the other. It definitely takes a month to adjust every time. Um, so not having that adjustment time would be nice. That's for sure. And if I could choose for NCAA's to be long course, I would definitely choose that just because it would make it easier in the long run, when it really matters. And that is, I mean, world championships and European championships and the Olympics, which is all long course.
I mean, they used to do it in short course meters during Olympic years. I don't know why they stopped.
Yeah, I know. I think it would be nice if they did that. Um, but yeah, so I do really like short course just because it requires a lot of different skills, and I think those skills are also needed in the longer pool. Um, but yeah, it would be nice if it was like the same system. It would just make life easier. But on the other hand, it just like switches things up. Uh, it would be nice. You know what? What would be best if it was short course meters like all the time and never short course yards, because that way internationally the times would also matter, and people would understand the significance of Caleb Dressel's 17. Because when I came to the US, I had no idea how fast that was. And then I started racing yards and I was just like, bro, how am I going to go 1.5 seconds faster, in a 50? So it would be nice just because it would get more recognition. Um, yeah, like when I went, so last year over the summer, or sorry, at NCAA's, I had a 53 split on the relay that was 18.0, which is pretty, I think it was the fourth fastest split
It's
ever
pretty
in
fast.
NCAA history. And I was just very proud of that because I hadn't really focused on the 53. And in the Netherlands, people just don't recognize that. People think that going short course meters, going like a 20.1 split is way more significant than an 18.0 split. And I just like would beg to disagree. And it would just be nice if everybody would be on the same terms of that. That would be nice. Yeah.
I think the flip side of Dressel's 17.6 in the 50 is in short course meters when he went 49.2 in the 100 IM.
Yeah.
I don't think in the
Exactly.
U.S. that gets recognized enough as he's a second faster than everybody else.
Yeah. No, exactly. And that's kind of the significance of that 17 as well. Like it's just a second faster than the rest. Like it's just unbelievable. So yeah.
So I try to ask this question to everybody I talk to who's competed at it, but there's not much focus in the U.S. placed on European championships. I mean, it's a European competition, so it makes sense. But I've always been interested by it. I've always watched it as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious what kind of focus is placed on it in Europe, at least compared to like the Olympics or World Championships.
Uh-huh. I would say, well, so historically, it's always been one summer of world championships, one summer of European championships, one summer of worlds, one summer of Europeans, and yet that just constantly. And then every 4 years, it would also be the Olympics. Um, I think that with the most important meet being worlds or Europeans, it doesn't really matter which one it is. You just put the same effort into it throughout the whole year, and it's kind of the end point of the year. Um, Obviously, before the Olympics, there's also a European Championships, and I think that one's less important than the Olympics because it falls in the same summer. Um, but I would say most of the time, the importance of the European Championships training wise is the same as a world championships for sure. But then, I mean, if you become world champion, it's a little more special than becoming a European champion. Yeah, that's for sure.
I think that the European Championships, that's the year of the Olympics, usually is just used as like a final like tune-up before
Yeah,
the actual Olympics happens.
for sure. Yeah, that's definitely what it is. Or for some people who know that they're not going to be a medalist at world champ or at the Olympics, they might taper for European championships and take their shine. Yeah.
So I didn't have this initially written on my questions, but the thoughts just come to me. I'm curious. So European Championships allows 3 athletes per country. Um,
Three.
yeah, but in like prelims, for example, if like 3 Italian swimmers were first, second, third, that third swimmer would be knocked out. They wouldn't.
Oh,
It could
yeah.
only go to only two
Right.
people could advance to semifinals.
Yep. Yep.
Do you would you personally wish that was a thing at other competitions, or do you not like it? The thought literally just came to me.
Yeah, I mean it is kind of an interesting concept. So I know that for countries where the competition is really high internally, like in Italy, let's say like the women breaststroke events, it just makes prelims so much more important. And I think that's not completely fair just because it's not as important for countries with less competition. And it could just be that the best swimmer in the country isn't awake yet in the morning and just like flinches and misses the semifinal, even though that person could have gone a world record in the final. Um, I don't know. It just creates a different competition within the competition. Um, and I think that's a little unfair. I mean, for me, it's great because the Netherlands isn't as deep mostly as like a country like Russia or Italy or Great Britain. Um, so it makes it, uh, I don't know, a little easier in the semifinal if I don't know, someone who's very good already dropped out of the prelims. Um, but I don't know. It's a little unfair if there's so many people that like have the extra competition within the prelims. Yeah.
It sort of reminds me of how convoluted the U.S. system for Pan Pacific Championships,
Right.
where like you can have like 6 different people make the team in the same event, but then they
Yeah.
go and 2 people get picked for A final and B final. It's makes it a lot more complicated, I think.
Yeah. It's a little messy. It's a little messy, and I think it would be nice if the only competition would be just making the semifinals and then from semifinals making the finals. Yeah.
So speaking of Italy and speaking of countries like Great Britain, there's been a lot of talk over the past couple of years of those countries, Italy in particular, putting together some pretty awesome relays. And I don't think there's been enough talk about how the Netherlands has been putting together
Hmm.
relays. Because
Yeah.
going back to like 2008, I mean, there was a team of 4 women from the Netherlands who had like a dynasty on the 400 free relay for
Right.
4 years. So I'm curious if you can talk about how important relays are to the team. Obviously, they're important, but what has been your experience competing on and winning medals on relays over the past couple of
Uh,
years?
yeah. So I think the Netherlands is very lucky to be a sprint country. We I would say we excel in 50 freestyle, 100 freestyle, just like the 100 stroke once in a while. But yeah, just having that already makes our relays a lot better, um, especially compared to a country where, like let's say Hungary, where they have a dynasty in the two fly and the distance events. You can't really make relays from that, except for the 4x2 free, maybe. But then, yeah, so that way we already have a lot of talent in the sprints. And I think we all in the Netherlands, there's a huge focus on racing. People want to race, and that um, I don't know, a relay is the perfect race. You don't have to do it alone, and there's so much speed in it. So yeah, that I think that makes it that the Netherlands is just extremely good at relays, just historically, and just our focus on the details, with sprints makes it that we are also successful. Yeah, but I think when I compare the Netherlands to NC State and the focus on relays, I think NC State has a bigger focus on relays just because it's honestly the most important thing at NCAA's. You can score the most points in it, and in the Netherlands, it is still individuals being really good and getting put together to be on a relay and to perform together. So I think maybe for the future it would be good to focus more throughout the season on the relays and just on the relay exchanges and knowing each other. Um, but yeah, no, I freaking love relays. It's the best part of swimming. I personally think, yeah.
I think it's when I guess the individual aspect of swimming comes together to you get more of a team vibe to it.
Yes.
So I'm I'm curious if so everybody had a roadmap. I feel like all the athletes who were planning to compete at the Olympics had a roadmap for those 4 years leading up to it,
Yeah.
and then like 4 months out, everybody's roadmap got like thrown in the trash. It was completely upended. I'm curious what that did for you and what it did for your roadmap to Tokyo, and if anything, how did the changes that you had to make affect the outcome of your competition at the Olympics?
Yeah, so I'm right now I'm looking up a picture. Um, I actually after World Championships in what was it in
In
South Korea?
Gwangju in South Korea.
Gwangju,
Yeah.
yeah, in Gwangju. I did very poorly, and I decided, you know what? I'm gonna make a map. I'm gonna map it out. Let's see.
If
Oh,
you want as well, you can email me the picture and I'll put it on screen right now.
yeah, that would be great. I'll do that. I'll just so you have an idea of what it looks like. It might have actually disappeared. I bet my mom still has it. I'll ask her. But it doesn't matter. I made a I basically I stole one of the wall, like one of the blue wall parts. That was probably as big as like I don't know, it was freaking huge. It probably covered like from here to the wall to there. It was really big. And I basically mapped out what weeks I had and what the things what were that I had to do to make it in the 100 freestyle because I felt like that was my biggest shot. I was more of a freestyler back then, and yeah, that was my sophomore year, and it was the qualification time was 58.5, and I was 58.8 at that time. So I thought that was my best shot. And then I swam it at Tier Pro Swim in Knoxville in January, like right before COVID hit, kind of. And I mean, I sucked ass. I was 49.0 or 49.2, fully tapered. So that was a huge bummer for me. And then in the 50 free, I went 22.2, which was a pretty big PB for me. And I was like, which meant that I was 2/10 off of the qualification time. And then COVID hit, and that was a little scary. Because I don't know, I had to like change my plans, and I had no idea where to go. And then the new qualifications came out, and the new qualifications were basically uh, at the end of the year in 2020, like in December. That was like the slot. And it was just like a lot of things it was just very overwhelming. And it was very difficult because everything was planned out, and all of a sudden it just didn't work out anymore. And then I mean, over the summer in 2020, I went on vacation with my family. We had like a camper RV, and we drove to Italy. I actually visited one of my friends here, Giovanni Izzo, and actually visited Nue Ponte as well on the way. He was committed to NC State at that time, and yeah, I thought a lot about it and what I was going to do. And at that point, I decided I was going to stay home for a year. And kind of like just have the security of the Netherlands and stay there. And I got accepted by the national team because that was not obvious at that time because like I chose Francie State over the national team, so it was a little messy, but it worked out really well for me. And I think honestly, oh yeah, and then the 50 free, like I went sub 50, like I went below the A qualification time, but there was two guys faster than me. So then I had to switch to another stroke and I had to switch to the 100 fly, which worked out really well for me at that time. But I think the extra year, honestly, I don't know if I would have qualified without COVID. Like I don't know. I mean, probably not, especially not in the 100 fly. So in that sense, COVID might have given me an extra opportunity to focus on something else. And yeah, eventually I qualified in the 100 fly, which is very surprising at the time.
Broke the national record once or twice too.
Yeah, exactly. It was very, I don't know. You could almost make a movie about that. Like it was very very up and down, and then at some point I was 1/100th above the qualification time, which was, I mean,
Just a little bit annoying. Just a
yeah,
little bit.
little it was crazy, but yeah. So,
So I'm curious. Speaking of that like, national record and all the races that you've done, and
hmm
this doesn't necessarily have to just apply to races that you've won medals in. But
okay.
what do you think was like your most important race that you've done for both like your development as an athlete and just for you personally?
Um, well, that's a good question. I would say I have a top three. Number one is the AOF, European Junior Olympic Festival in Tbilisi in 2014 or 15. It was well, I got European Junior Olympic champion, and that was very big for me at that time. It was probably one of the coolest meets I've ever been to too, because it was kind of the setup as the Olympics, but it was just Europe, and there was like a village, and there was different sports and all that, and it was actually such a messy meet. I remember the 50 freestyle semifinal. Um, in my semifinal, they forgot to start the time, so we had to redo it at the end. Um, so yeah, it was very messy, but that like really made me realize like, hey, there's something in the tank for me. I can achieve something in this. And yeah, then my second would probably be, so remember what I said about not qualifying in the 50 freestyle?
Yeah.
So that day, that's what I was focused on for like half a year, that day. And I was so freaking nervous. I was so nervous. And there was a camera, there was like a documentary series that was following me for 4 years leading up to the Olympics, and they were there to film me qualify for the Olympics. And then somebody went faster. And that just like, I don't know, that tore me up because that was the first time I went under 22 as well. And then I was just like the day after that, I had the freaking 100 fly. And I remember looking myself in the mirror and just being like this. I was just so upset and I just so didn't want to do the 100 fly. And then all of a sudden I like broke my PB with more than a second. And the 100 fly was in sight for the Olympics. And that was probably, well, that race really changed my life because all of a sudden I was a butterflyer and not a freestyler anymore because that was my biggest shot. Um, so yeah, that race really changed my life. Might have been a gift from God, like, hey man, look at this. It was like that could fit into that movie too. And then the last one, which I'm probably most proud of, is going 18.6 in the 50 free at NCAA's and going 18.0 during the relay. Like that day, I was just so hyped. Like I didn't really care about the 50 free during that meet, and I just like, I don't know, crushed it. And that was just, I don't know.
It's pretty impressive to go what is essentially the same time when you take out like reaction time.
Basically, yeah.
Like do that twice in the 50 free on the same day is pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, I was very happy with that. That might have been one of my better swimming days. But just like I don't know, it's almost like the race I focus on most goes the worst. And the races that I don't really focus on and just like go in without pressure on my shoulders, they just go really well. Um, and I'm like somehow I'm trying to kind of simulate that feeling, you know, like almost letting it happen instead of like just making it less important for myself because somehow that is the key for me. Um,
I mean,
yeah,
I've had a similar experience at my community college, like our conference
yeah,
champs.
yeah,
I like the mile was my focus, and the 4 a.m. was my focus. The whole little bit of different events than the
yeah.
15.
I was about to say.
Those were my focus the whole season. And then I
Hmm.
didn't go a best time in my mile or in my 4 a.m. And then I dropped like a minute in my mile, which I was very happy about.
Yeah,
And then I did the 200 back, which my coach had put me in at the last second. I hadn't swam it in like 3 years, and I
yeah,
didn't really expect much. And then I went a best time in the prelim and the final,
yeah.
and ended up getting like top four. And I'm like, okay,
Nice. Yeah.
wasn't expecting it, but I'm not gonna complain.
Yeah, but
Uh,
those are like the magic moments. And I think I don't know, maybe that's just the hard work you put into it in the end. It's not it'll come out somehow.
yeah,
Um so yeah, that's something I don't know, I'm trying to like figure out how I can do that
you gotta
because
find like the lightning in a bottle.
yeah, exactly, because swimming it's so important for your life and it's impossible to like make it so that it's not important anymore for you. But somehow you gotta like find that relaxation that it's not important for you.
Where you're just swimming happy instead of trying to overstress and focus on everything.
Yes, exactly that.
So my last like couple of questions for you here. So this is your final season at NC State,
Hmm.
unless unless
Unless we don't
it's
know yet.
as of now it's considered final season at NC State.
Exactly, yeah.
So what are some of the goals you have if you're comfortable sharing them for yourself and for the team? And then after your season's over, heading into the next Olympics, where do you see yourself after that?
Yeah. Um, I don't know. I'm not really comfortable sharing those goals just because I don't want to put them out there. I also don't want to put it on paper for myself because,
Which is
I don't
fair.
want to like just like we
Yeah.
talked about just now. Um, but I would want to go out proud, uh, having done whatever I could for the team. And and yeah, at the Olympics, kind of the same way. It's like I just want to be satisfied with what I've done. Uh, yeah, it's hard. It's hard. Like on the one hand, I want to set goals for myself, but on the other hand, I want to kind of like just go with the flow. And certainly I have goals. I have a lot of like right now, I have a lot of goals within the race. Um, which would eventually lead to uh, either medals or PBs and those I think those are the goals I need to focus on right now. Like let's say for the fly, like I messed up my ankle a little over 2 months ago, and that really necked me during World Championships. I hadn't trained for 1.5 months with anything with my ankle just because I couldn't kick, and that really messed me up during Worlds. And just being able to kick underwater again and being able to like get to the level of I don't know, like Yusuf Ramadan and Luca Orlando. Well, that's a goal of mine, for example. Like because on top of the water, I would say I'm the same as not better than them. But underwater, I just miss a lot, and that's one of the goals I have. To be better underwater. Um, and the same with the 50 free, just be better at the turn because that's where I lose a couple tenths. Uh, so yeah, it's more process oriented goals um, that eventually would lead to uh, good stuff.
I think that's a good way to put it. Of not focusing on like time based things and more focusing on this is what I want to do, and it'll lead to, and
Yeah.
then if I do this correctly, it'll lead to something positive happening.
Exactly. And it's extremely difficult because in the end everybody has dreams and everybody wants to achieve something, but that will it'll almost like I don't know. I thought it was interesting. I mean, I don't know if this is true, but Nui Ponti, at World Championships, he medaled in the 50 fly and he medaled in the 200 fly. But I think he wanted to win gold in the 100 fly. And I think he overswam his 100 fly because the urge of wanting to win was too big. And I don't know this about him. Like I've talked to him a lot, but I haven't like asked him about this specifically. But it would make sense, because wanting to medal is just so much of it. It's just so much pressure. And it can also help you. It can also help you win for sure. But in the end, that's a result. And the only way of getting there is by doing the things in the water right, you know? Uh, so yeah.
I remember watching World Championships because I was up at like 2 a.m. every night watching the finals
Yeah.
in
Nice. Good
Australia.
job.
And I just for fun, I would like write down my like predictions for each race.
Hmm.
And I had him as medaling in the 100 fly, and I didn't have him medaling in the 200 fly. So I think that's a some interesting context to put behind potentially. Obviously, he's not here to say it himself, but
Hmm.
potentially like him not expecting a medal in the 200 fly and being pleasantly surprised by it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's also how he got his bronze medal in Tokyo. You know, he probably didn't expect he was going to medal, and he just did it. He just did what he had to do in the race, and that resulted in a medal. Um,
It's a
so
pretty fast time too. I think he went like 50.6.
yeah, something like that. It's very
Yeah.
fast, very impressive. Yeah.
So cool. So my final thing for you is just at the end of every interview that I do, I like
Uh-huh.
to always give the person I'm talking to time to just either promote something for themselves, like it could be sponsorships or just something that you're going to be doing, or just essentially it's just time for you to say whatever you want. Like this is your time.
Hmm. Well, I don't know. I didn't really prepare that.
I mean, I've
Uh,
had like when I talked to like Caitlin Sandino, she just promoted being kind, and then
yeah.
if you've got any like sponsorships, I can link them in the description for you too.
No, well, I mean, if any sponsors are watching, please sponsor me because I don't have any sponsors, which kind of blows. I've been trying to grow my Instagram channel a lot, and maybe I can grow my TikTok. That's kind of one of my plans for this semester, actually, to kind of work on that. But no, yeah, if sponsors are watching, send me an email. That'd be great. And my message would be kind of what I focused on earlier, just like seeing it as a process. Swimming. The best part about swimming is to kind of reach those process goals and to just that's why I fell in love with swimming, just because every single detail matters a little bit. Everything added up will result in a little bit of a better time at the end. And just focus on those process things and just try to get better at those little things. And in the end, maybe it'll get you to the Olympics like it did with me. And just trust the process. Um, I always say that talking to your coaches is probably the biggest key to success. Uh, and have fun with it. Do other stuff outside of swimming. Have hobbies, and yeah, just have a good life, and then all the puzzle pieces will fall into place. Yeah.
Cool.